Greatness. 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 Wow, wow, wow. Greatness.
Yo, welcome to the Renewing the Mind podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Sanchez, joined with me, as always, my dad, Dr. Raul Sanchez. How you doing, Dad?
I'm feeling amazing. Like back in the day at NDSU when we had a saying, those who stay will play. Those who play will be champions. Once a champion, always a champion. There she is right there, baby. Woo-hoo-hoo.
And there's the ring kiss. We have, obviously, as you can see, a special guest with us, my little not as cool or good-looking brother, Terrence. Terrence, you want to say anything to the people?
Other than that, I'm the only other champion in the family.
Oh,
whoa. No one cares about track. So on this podcast, we teach you how to renew your perspective, move towards uncertainty, and find what's awesome about that in every situation. And never forget it. There's 2 times to be great: when you feel like it and when you don't.
Yes,
So
sir.
Tonight has been a technical difficulty nightmare. My internet went out. I couldn't get my things sunk up. Eliza came down at 8:57. These guys' camera's not working. So we know anytime that happens, usually we got a great podcast in store for you. Means the enemy's maybe trying to knock us off or get us out of our path. So yeah, I was going to have you straighten your camera up a little bit, and then you can even slide the mic a little bit closer to you guys.
There we go.
Okay. So, maybe put it a little closer, but like straighten it out a little bit if you can. If not, it's no big deal.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, slide it center a little bit.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, now we're working. Oh. All right. So today we're talking about choose your hard. And I was trying to find this clip, but I couldn't find it, the exact one I saw. But basically the idea in this concept is life is hard. You choose which hard you want to do. So if it's working out's hard, but being overweight is just as hard. You can fight for your marriage and work hard at your marriage, or divorce is hard as well, and walking through that. So it's that concept between studying is hard, but failing and dropping out of college is also hard. And so that's kind of the concept today. And what we're talking about is we're pulling Terrence in, someone who graduated from college and done college ministry and all that stuff. And so obviously we're on this podcast. One of the main things, if you've been watching for any sort of time, is that, you know, we kind of preface it all this with our relationship with Jesus. And that is kind of the center, that is kind of the foundation, that's kind of the launching point from a lot of the stuff we talk about. And so I'll just kind of say that a lot of the stuff we come from, and where Terrence is going to be coming from tonight, and where we kind of bounce off each other, is knowing that at the core of everything we do, Jesus has to be the center of your life. And so that's kind of all I'll say, and I'll turn it over to you two, and then I'll obviously cut you off if you're going too long, or chime in when I need to. So Terrence, Dad, take us away.
All right. So we're going to be talking about Terrence's story at Iowa State, and just to give you a quick idea. All our 3 kids went to college: Tyler, Terrence, and Tavian. And their first semester of each year, 3 different universities: Evangel University, Iowa State, and now Creighton University. The first semester is very, very difficult. If you don't get into a group, if you don't kind of flow with the crowd, if you stand out at all as an individual, it's very difficult, because the flow and the crowd, the horde, the thundering herd, if you will, all goes one direction. And if you're not doing that direction, if you're not going that flow, you do feel left out, and it gets pretty lonely. And Terrence's experience at Iowa State was very hard for us. We talked to him on a Friday night, and he was alone. And there were some difficult situations that we had to walk him through. And so this is Terrence's. We invited him in, and this is Terrence's idea. This is where he wants to go. So he's going to jump in, kind of give some stats and jump in. He's got 3 points, and then we're going to bounce off those 3 points. So let's go.
Yeah. I can start with a little backstory, I guess. In high school, my plan was to go to Evangel, where Tyler went. It's a Christian university. I had this fear in the back of my mind of going to secular college for different reasons. I didn't like math, so I didn't want to study engineering or anything like that. I wanted to be a psychologist like my dad. Long story short, God kind of interrupted that and called me out of that and said, Terrence, you're running from what you're fearing, and I'm calling you to Iowa State University and to be in engineering. And that's kind of where I landed. Our first point is to go over some statistics we have. So our first one is regarding Christians in going into college and leaving college. So Barna Research did some studies a few years ago, and they basically came up with that 70% of college freshmen who claim to follow Jesus end up not following Jesus by the end of their college career, meaning they'll go into college as Christians, and when they leave, they no longer profess the name of Jesus. And then it even goes on to expand on that, saying that 80% will even be at that place by age 29.
So they leave high school a Christian, and by the time they graduate, 70% of them are no longer professing to be a Jesus follower, and 80% of them will not be a Jesus follower by age 29.
Yeah, that's a tough stat to hear.
Yes.
That's not just a little bit or a slight percentage. That's a high majority.
Yeah. And so the first point is this: think about how much, just as dads, Ty, you're a dad, I'm a dad, you're watching. If you're watching, you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a grandpa. We spend a ton of time putting kids into, Sunday school, Christian education, sending them to church camps, doing all these things. And at 18, we cut them loose and we put them in big universities with thousands of people who just literally conform. Like whatever the fad is, I'm in. Whatever direction the crowd's going, I'm going. I'm in. Hey, do this. I've never done it before. Hey, have fun. Tie one on. Have fun. Let it go. Like be loose. Like it's college. What happens is people leave college then and they don't know how to come back. So when I was at North Dakota State, I had a small section of time. Like when I turned 21, we went to this thing called the Ground Round. It'd be like Applebee's today. You could go to the bar and sit right there. It's a whole restaurant. You can sit at the restaurant and still watch TV and eat. They had like an all-you-can-eat taco bar. Like, I can't turn down tacos, but like we just sit there and watch Monday Night Football. And then I had a couple like non-alcoholic margaritas. And then I was like, dude, I'm 21, I'm 22. Like, who said? So I'd have one or two. But there's this idea of driving home thinking like, how can I go then give us talk to youth about DARE and alcohol free and stuff like this? I was never drunk. I wasn't doing it to get buzzed. It was just something I thought, okay, I can probably do it. I'm 21, But the cognitive dissonance for me, the thing that kept crashing in my mind was I can't stand up and give these talks to youth groups because I was speaking. I didn't feel right saying, hey, dare to be different. And then I'm conforming. So right away I had to clash that thing. So I let that go. I started speaking and talking and didn't drink. And then I got to North Dakota State, started doing some ministries for high school students. And I met a couple of North Dakota State players who were Christians who didn't know how to walk that line. And so they came up to me behind the scenes. I'm not going to say any names, but these guys are in youth ministry now. A couple of them are youth ministers. They're maybe parents and helping youth ministry. And they'd come up to me privately, and each of them differently, different times, different conferences. A lot of it was like Acquire the Fire, old school stuff. Okay. And they'd come up to me and just say, man, I wish I had the strength like you to stand for Christ and take that hard way. Okay. And right away I told him, I was like, dude, I wasn't alone. Okay. First of all, I'm married. I had my wife. The second thing is I had 3 mentors. And every time I start feeling like I'm alone and I don't have it together, like I really just leaned on one of them. And some of those guys then, after college do turn back. And so those guys would be in that 30% fold, right? Those guys would be in the 30% where they maybe fell out in college and kind of maybe lost their way, but they still hold on to both. Coming out of college, they still now are serving the Lord. So I'm just helping you understand, like, this isn't just Terrence's life, Terrence's experience. But I want him to walk through his personal experience, just knowing 3 for 3, all my kids had a little bit of this problem where they felt lonely, isolated. I was the other ones that's 4 for 4. So I know this is a huge issue for all of us. So go ahead. Let's go through your next stat.
Yeah, well, actually, I want to cover my first point first.
Okay, good.
So the first point we're coming from is the importance to get involved and then invest in a Christian fellowship on campus. There are plenty of great ones. Just find the one that is Bible believing, and that will push you to become a disciple and then make disciples of others as well. This will help you kind of, like my dad said, it'll help you separate yourself from the secular life on university. When you're on a secular college or even a Christian university, you're going to experience a large majority, 90% plus of people and students that know nothing of God. They act and do nothing in the ways of the Lord. All those things do is pull you from where God is leading you and wanting you to be in your life. And joining a Christian community, first and foremost, will get you out of the secular life and into a great Christian community. There's a stat by the BBC, and it basically says that they did a study over in the UK, and I think they even did some studies in the US too, and they both resounded this outcome, which is that 1 in 4 college students profess to be lonely most or all of the time. And that's compared to the rest of adulthood. The rest of adulthood is 1 in 20. So college students have 4 times the chance to be lonely. That's kind of a tough concept to understand because, I mean, when you're in college, you're surrounded by people. There's people everywhere. I mean, I went to a university where there were almost 30,000 students on campus. In my dorm specifically, there were 2,500. And so the question is, how can you be surrounded by that many people, but still be lonely? And the reality is that when you're a part of the secular world, people may know your name. They may know what you study. They may know your hobbies or interests. But the question comes down to, do they really know you? And the reality is that most students will say that they don't feel like they're known by anyone. They, their deepest, darkest inner beings, what they struggle with, their anxieties, their worries. No one really knows that because it's all superficial. They go out and they party, or they go out and they do their thing. And there's no real, one-on-one human interaction community that is found in Christian community. And that's why it's so important. It pulls you out of that loneliness of, I'm alone here surrounded by people, but it's, I'm side by side with people that are pushing for the same thing that I am and that are both serving the same purpose.
Yeah. And then also, just college in general is a lonely time because you've left your support system. You got your college buddies that you've been with for the last 4 years or 3 years or 2 years. You also got your friends, outside of school and sports. You got your family. So just that alone, that's a good piece of advice. Take away any sort of spiritual aspect of it, getting into any community. That's why fraternities are such a huge draw and pull for so many non-believers and believers, is because immediately you're connected with and forced to find and make those relationships.
Yeah.
And so, when you're stepping into a Christian, as a Christian stepping into a non-Christian world, that's even more crucial to try to lock arms with someone that is like-minded and hopefully have the same values and same morals and same do's and don'ts.
Yeah. And just think for a minute too, Ty, like, not to switch gears, but just to touch on it. Who's the guy, the graphic designer who, when in college, said, who called you out and said, "Bro, you're a Christian? No way."
Greg Nelson.
Greg. Yeah. And that's a funny thing too, is like Terrence just said, people know you, right? But they don't know that deep inner being of you. And the reason is, in order to conform, you have to die to yourself a little bit. You have to let go of you, and you have to just run with the crowd, right? So like, if NDSU fans, we all got to put on NDSU hats, even though you might not want to, even though you don't like it. So when we talk about don't conform and then go your own way, yes, there is some conformity in that smaller group, but at least it's you choosing that conformity, like going to church, right? We all have a Bible. You're conforming to read the Bible. So there is some conformity there. But I want you just to see what Terrence said. That's a good point, is Greg knew you, but he really didn't know you. And then I don't know how that conversation went, but he's like, "Wait, bro, what? You're a Christian? No way."
Yeah, we just, the 2 points. Number one, part of it is conforming to the mass around you. And then the other part is just the societal norm of going to college means wilding out. Like, that's just a standard. You don't have to try to fit in. Like, that's across the board a unanimous thing, that at college, it's where you try new things. It's where you do everything your parents wouldn't let you do in high school, and you have the immediate freedom to do whatever you want. So it's like, I wasn't trying to fit in. I was trying to just do what I wanted to do, and you didn't let me.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like that. So that's what I did at Morningside. And then I decided to go to Evangel. And so I told them on a Saturday morning after we drank Friday night, I said, hey man, I'm going to a Christian school. He's like, why would you do that? I was like, well, because I'm a Christian. He's like, no, you're not. He's like, you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
Like, no, I definitely am a Christian. So
yeah, correct.
All right, go to the next one, Terrence.
Yeah. The next one is the need to depend on the Lord. I think it's something that is applied across all of life, but specifically in college, I feel like when you go to college, the biggest thing on your mind is school and your degree and your grades. And a lot of times that can feel like, okay, that's on me. I have to study hard. I have to work hard. And you do. But something happens when you decide to devote yourself to a Christian community and invest your time in that. And it's that the time you have for studies becomes less and less. And I know too many students that were on the line between really going into community and diving in, and then, oh, well, I need to study and work hard, so I can't do that. And the reality is that God wants us to do both, and he wants us to do both well. And how we do that is depending on the Lord. I can kind of explain it with a story as well. My junior year, I was leading a small group, and I was on other places of leadership in a Christian community I was involved with as well. So I think it was probably like 20 hours a week that I was investing in community. And I was studying engineering, so I was dealing with hard classes and things like that. And this is just one of 20 instances in my life where God provided in my undergrad. But I was in a class called Controls and Motors. I was learning electrical things that do with mechanical things, that kind of thing. A lot of math. At the end of the semester, I had in like 88.6, I think it was. And the professor kind of came on stage and he said, I know all of you are going to come to me and ask for points back, or you're going to ask if you're on the line of an A to be moved up, like an 89.8 or something, 89.9, to go up to 90. And I knew I was way off that. I was over 1% below an A, a 90%. But I felt like the Lord was really challenging me to go and advocate for myself and to ask for an A, which was very bold, and that was very challenging for me to do. So I prayed over it for a few days. I felt like I needed to do that. So I went and talked to him, and he kind of laughed and he said, did you hear what I said in class, kind of thing? Like I said, if you're close, we're close, that kind of thing. And he said, I'll think about it, whatever. And then so I left. So I prayed, and over the next few days, I just kept praying and believing that the Lord is going to provide. He spoke and told me he would, so he would. This A was like the break point for my GPA. I wanted to be over a certain point, and this is the point I needed. And then on the last day grades needed to be put in, I was driving home to Sioux City. And I remember getting an email from him saying, hey, I need you to send me a screenshot of all of your quizzes and all of your assignments. And so I sent them all of them, and I sat there and watched I pulled over on the side of the road, but I watched in my grade book as all of my tests, all of my assignments and all my quizzes went from whatever grade I had to 100% until my grade went to 90.1.
Bro, that's whack. That never happened with me.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah, that happened a lot of times, and it
was
was
a lot.
A
Bro,
lot.
I was trying to go from a D to a C. They said no.
I had made an agreement with the Lord, and that was that I was going to devote myself to this community and to discipleship, even though I was studying engineering. We kind of had this agreement that, I was going to obviously work hard and try in my classes, but at the same time, I knew that there was going to be a lack there because I was devoting 20 hours a week to community. And so his deal was that he would pull me through when I needed to be pulled through. And the reality is that drew me closer to the Lord. So in the seasons of difficulty or loneliness, I had intimacy with the Lord because I was depending on him. And so if we as students can realize that I should be in a place of dependency on God, it will keep us better in a place of intimacy with him as well.
Yeah. So what's super crazy about that is, like, we talk all the time about favor, right? Favor of God, like unmerited, just grace, just unmerited, like reward. You don't deserve it. God just gives it to you. It's kind of like a dad's in a good mood, so he just gives you, his card and says, hey, Shields has Black Friday, like that.
My dad
That's
ain't
it.
never been in that good a mood. What?
Appreciate ammo.
That's that.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's the thing. So there's the favor of God, right? The Bible says this, that the Lord will cover us as favor, as like a shield. So favor is that unmerited gift, but that favor also covers you as like a shield. Okay. And then the other thing is, like, when you have that kind of favor, there's a thing called the shield of obedience, which is when you're walking in a direct obedience with God, you're covered by that shield as well. So what Terrence is saying, we had an agreement, like he was shielded. I'm going to do, it's almost like that when then, hey, if you take out the garbage, then I'll give you allowance. If you lead this group of men, I'll see to it that your grades are okay. Now, obviously, you can't go from a C to an A, but you can go from a high B plus to an A. So that's. I mean, obviously, the Lord could move you from a C to an A if He wanted to, obviously. But in this situation, that's the shield of favor, right? And that's the shield of obedience. So walk in obedience with God, and amazing things happen. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Today in my 6th grade class, we were talking about how people misinterpret Scripture, and sometimes they take specific promises for individuals and make that like a biblical principle. And so I told them, like, don't take a staff and go down to Browns Lake and try to split Browns Lake like Moses did, because that's not a promise and a principle that's for all eternity. That was specific for one person. And so when you're hearing this from Terrence, students, you shouldn't just go to your teachers because Terrence's went from a B plus to an A. That's not the principle. You got to pull the principle out. The principle is that Terrence heard from God a specific thing to do, and he walked that out in faith. And so that's the key point, that you need to be walking in stride and in obedience to God. And when he says to do something, you do that with faith and with favor that hopefully God has to see that through. But that's the principle in that story is Terrence heard from God. So he's spending time with God. And then now he heard from God. Now he has the obedience to act and to go with action upon what he heard.
Yeah.
All right, Terrence, bring us the next one.
Last one.
Yeah. The last one is that we are called to live on mission. Going back to our first 2 points, Matthew 18:3 says that Jesus basically is when he pulls the child aside and he says that you must be like this child. And he isn't meaning that we're to be childish in our actions or our thoughts, but to walk in humility and dependency upon the Lord. And so, like we said, like the favor and the promise of God isn't just something that you just get. It's, you're not going to go out and party and then be like, okay, God, I partied all weekend, I need to provide for my grades. But it's when you walk in obedience where God has called you and led you into, he will take care of all of the things in your life that are being replaced by your devotion to the Lord and what he's called you into. And so, the Great Commission in the end of Matthew 28 says, go into all the nations and preach the gospel to all the ends of the earth. And that's not just for missionaries. That's not just for pastors. That is something that is for all people. And I think a lot of times, students can go into the 4 years of college and say, okay, well, I have to get my degree and then the rest of my life will start. And the reality is that the 4 years you're in college are arguably some of the most, pivotal years of your life. It is where the building block and the foundation of what you're going to be and who you're going to be the rest of your life is built upon. I mean, Tyler is your testimony of this. The decisions you made in your 4 years is what drove the trajectory of your life. And so the idea that we're going to wait until we're graduated to live on mission is not correct. We're called to live as missionaries to everyone we encounter in our life, specifically in college, especially in college. I mean, when you think about the statistics around being at a secular university, I mean, over 90% have no recollection of God or who he is or his ways of Jesus in any way. I mean, at Iowa State University alone, there's over 100 nations represented. So you have this abundance of non-believers surrounded by you, and you are planted like a light in a place to be used. The word says to let your light shine before men, so they will see your good deeds and be praised in heaven. And so he'll be praised in heaven. And so this idea that I'm here to get a degree is correct, but that's not the reason why you're just there. God has a plan and a mission for you, and he has those that are around you that he wants you to encounter and to reach, and to make an impact beyond just your degree. This will make an impact in the kingdom, and it'll also keep you walking in step with the Lord. As he has you on mission, it'll keep you safe from the temptations of partying and being, involved in all the secular things that the college has to throw you away. It'll keep you shielded by that because you're walking in what the Lord has for you and you're living on mission. There was one semester where I was leading a small group and I felt like God had called me to go back to where I came from. And so my dad talked about my loneliness my first 2 semesters of university. Basically, I had a girlfriend for most of my first year, and so I didn't really choose to invest in community like I said you should at the beginning of this podcast. And so when that relationship fell through, I didn't have a net. I basically fell to the ground. And so I was lonely and I was hurting, and I didn't really have any friends. I had a couple of friends, but they were really busy, so I didn't really see them much. And so much so that every day for dinner, I would go eat at like 4:30 p.m. when the dining center would open, when no one else was there, just so I could sit in a booth and, be alone and not look awkward. And so I felt like he had called me back to that. And so I had brought my small group guys, and we would go on certain days to the dining center at 4:30, and we would just find someone that was sitting there alone like I used to, and we would be called to go sit with them and talk with them, introduce ourselves, give them company, invite them into what we were doing on university and in our group. And there was one instance where there was a foreign exchange student sitting alone at a table, and I brought one of my buddies with me, and we went, sat down and talked with him and had lunch or dinner with him. And after about 5 minutes, he finally looked at us, and he just said, "Why are you doing this?" And we were like, "What do you mean?" He said, "No one has ever taken the time to come out of the way to sit and just talk with me and be with me." He basically said, "I come here alone every day, and I sit here and eat alone. And you're the only people that have ever introduced yourselves to me and talked to me." And so it was like right then and there that this was the prime example to share the gospel with someone who's never even heard it, to bring him into the community and to give life into what he was walking in. And there's more to that story, but it's pretty long, so we won't get into that. But it's just the idea that you're surrounded by people who need Jesus, especially at a university where 1 in 4 people are lonely most or all the time. And in response to doing that, it actually keeps yourself on mission as well, and not distracted by the things of this world.
Yeah. So, okay. So at North Dakota State, so like my mission was Campus Crusade for Christ. It was ran by a man named Bill Bright and a great organization. We walked around campus with little ABC packs, like how to walk people through to get saved, so that they could be introduced to Jesus Christ, and then invite them to some of our small groups. And then I spoke at Athletes in Action, which was like Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It's called AIA. And then I spoke at DARE. So there's a lot of ways you can do mission, right? So Terrence just talked about some of his mission, leading young men and building the community of Christians who get together, and then small group of men walking on campus and walking in alleys and praying with drunk people and doing a bunch of mission work for that. Mm-hmm. Tyler, you had some mission work with your mentor. You guys would go to a community center and also drive around a car with groceries, asking the Lord who you're gonna bless with groceries.
Yeah, more they're doing the missions to me because I was the lost soul. But yeah, towards the end of my college days, we did a little bit of praying.
Yeah, all walks.
Yeah, a couple points I just jotted down. One of the things I noticed because there's still people that don't want to follow Jesus at a Christian school, and so I fell into that category. But when I started meeting some of the friends that were like-minded and wanted to put me on the right path, and so I could follow them, one of the biggest things I realized was positive peer pressure. So many times we talk about peer pressure in the wrong way and that conforming. You kind of hit it on it, Dad, at the beginning, but there were so many nights where I wanted to do something we shouldn't do, and there's positive peer pressure to say like, "Hey man, this is not what you want to do." Like, "Hey, I know you want to do." I mean, to the point where sometimes they would hold me down in the room, or try to steal my keys or something stupid, or take my phone and not give it back to me. And as annoying as some of those nights were, when I wanted to do something stupid, that positive peer pressure kept me from doing that. So we always talked that it was the joke around my friends was like, as long as we're not all weak at the same night, we can help each other out. So in these 3, let's say this Friday night, it's me. I'm like, "Yo, I want to go out and drink." You 2 are like, "No, stop being stupid." Next Friday night, it's Dad. Me and Terrence are like, "No, don't be stupid." next Tuesday it's Terrence, me and dad are like, no, don't be stupid. And as long as we all didn't have the same weakness on the same night, we are all good to kind of help each other out. I think that's so crucial for anything in life, is to have someone, whether you're in high school, college, whether you're married or got your spouse, hopefully that's who she is or he is to you. But I think that's one of the biggest pieces to me about even on a Christian campus, especially on a non-Christian campus or secular campus, is, you gotta have some people that will tell you, don't do that. And here's what you need to do. Garrett was one of my biggest friends that would force church on me on a Sunday morning. Bro, we're getting up. No, we're not. And he just bang on my door until I woke up, like to the point where I hated him at some Sundays. Chase did the same thing. So it's like that pushed me in the right direction. And so we all got to have people that will do some of those things. Because back to the title of the show, it's hard to get up in the morning and go to church. It's harder, I think, to live a life away from Jesus. And so what choice are you making for your heart?
Yeah, it's hard to wake up with a hangover and study. It's hard to wake up and go with people to knock on doors and ask them if they want to come to your men's group, or if they want to be introduced to Jesus Christ. It's hard saying no to your boys on a Monday night because it's $1.99 for all the tacos you can eat, because this is like 1992 or something.
You guys rode your horses there too?
Just the coach, horse and carriage. Yeah. But here's the thing. I was like, the Monday night football game, having fun with the guys like that, I'm a man's man. It's funny how Terrence says the Lord brought me back, because that's a cool story too, by the way. Terrence could talk about that at some point. But when he got, turned around to go back from Berean to Life Point. So, I'm sitting at home for a while watching Monday Night Football by myself, because I'm like, I'm not going to go back in that situation where there's no peer pressure on me at all. I just was like, bro, I'm 22. Like, I can do this now, And so what I started doing is I had people come over 30 minutes before, Monday Night Football kickoff, maybe an hour. And I made my homemade tacos and hot sauce. And then we had, bought some Cokes. Maybe it was generic cola. I don't remember.
100% it wasn't Coke. We didn't get Coke till 2004.
I don't think Hillbilly Holler was made then. So I'll probably just generic cola. But, we had, tacos and hot sauce. And
the thing is called Cola.
I made nachos. And then, what we do is just put the lime from your tacos, just put that in your Coke. It just kind of felt like you're doing something, And then to this day, some of these successful businessmen now, great families and stuff. They to this day, yeah, they'll be like, dude, you remember you brought us over to that little bitty pad you had to make some tacos?
With your wife and kid at 19 years old.
Yeah, we all cram in literally like this efficiency. And, like big dudes, man, 300-pound dude, they can barely get through the door as they
but
they go small.
I mean, but all these stories, you can't do it alone. Like Terrence didn't circle back and go to the cafeteria by himself.
Correct.
You gotta have people with you. That's across the board. We were created as humans to be in unity and to be in relationship. Man should not be alone. Like that's Satan. All he wants to do is to separate us and to say, you are the only one going through what you're going through. Adam and Eve, when they first sinned, they walked away in shame and hid. That's what Satan's number one job is to get you isolated. And so that's at a 52-year-old man. That's a 68-year-old woman. That's unanimous across the board that we have to be in community. Take away college. That's right now. You have to be in a life group. You have to be in a church gathering. You got to be somewhere where people are like-minded with you that will say, hey, no, I've been there before, or I know someone, or talk to this, or you got this. We can do this together. Like that is the story of following Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. Sitting in your dorm room and having a mental crash, that's hard. Because who are you going to turn to? Who can experience the experience you're having? Like, who do you go to? How do you share that vulnerability, right? Also, going to a lunchroom by yourself is hard. Going with a group of people to sit down with somebody you don't know and saying, hi, we just want to friend you, that's hard. Like, how do you know that dude's not going to stand up and throw his soup in your face? Like, I've had doors slammed on me all the time. Like, get out of here, you Christian freak. And boom, slam a door on me. Like, you don't think I still got old school Cook Park in me? I'm like, bro, Lord, you better tell me to do something now, or I'm gonna keep knocking on this door.
So I like how you brought the old school sweatshirt back. That thing looks like it was from the what is that, the 60s?
There's a purpose to life, bro. Look at that. That's how it started. Y'all came from that seed right there. But I'm just telling you, like, It's hard. It's all hard. There's no doubt about it. It's all hard. But the idea is, don't think for a moment you don't have a choice. You choose to get wasted. That was a choice. It's hard. You choose to say no to those guys and stay home alone a couple nights. That's hard, but you made that choice. But here's the cool thing. Just like we talk about all the time, one day at a time, then you stack your days, you stack your days, you stack your days. Before you know it, you have 145 days in doing something, and it doesn't feel as hard. Is it hard? Definitely hard. But it doesn't feel as hard because now you got this momentum. Next thing you know, you see somebody and you got community now. And the next thing you know, you guys are kind of making some roads in together, and you're making some decisions together. So it seems like it's not as hard, but it's all hard. Okay. Give yourself credit. You're doing hard work. Congratulations. But now here's the question I want you to ask. Is it worth the reward? Is it worth the reward? I chose hard, whichever way you chose. The day you wake up, as you keep moving, is it worth the reward? Right. And I'll tell you, these guys can tell you it's 100% worth the reward to stay with the Lord, because small little blessings happen. Small little faith-based messages happen. You know, Terrence's story, he was running from the church. He was running from that group because he didn't have community. Him and his girlfriend didn't work out. So now he's trying a new church that, you know, that we are familiar with too. And Tyler told him, hey, it's a great church. They have great meetings there. Terrence, I don't know, got woken up in a dream or something. The Lord told him, hey, get there because there's a lady you're going to meet.
Yeah, I can
go ahead, finish the story.
Yeah, so like I said, my freshman year, you know, I was pretty lonely. And the church I had been going to in Ames, they went through a transition in pastors. And so it was kind of a limbo period. And so I was like, I have no place to call home. I'm alone. I don't have very many friends. I was, you know, obviously thrown with the temptation of going and partying and finding community there. But there was a church in Des Moines called Berean that we had been to in the past. And so I knew that it would at least feel some resemblance of home. And so I was attending there. And that was the hard that I chose, was to drive, you know, 50 minutes every Sunday down there, just to at least receive something from the Lord in terms of on a Sunday morning, and try to find community. And so I'd been doing that for a few months, and there was one Saturday night I was praying in my room, and I felt like God told me that there was going to be, he didn't say like anything more specific than a girl. He said, a girl is going to sit next to you tomorrow at Berean. And so, you know, this is me. I'm single now. I'm lonely. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be my wife. Like, this is going to be God sending me a girl. He's sending me my wife.
I remember praying for that.
And so I woke up Sunday morning and I was putting on all my best cologne. I was putting on my best clothes. I got there like 25 minutes early, and I was sitting in the pew, and I sat like the exact perfect amount of seats in, you know, and not in the middle, but not, you know, at the end, like 3 seats in. So the girl didn't have to feel uncomfortable sitting next to me, you know? And so I'm sitting there waiting, and I'm, you know, asking God, who's it going to be? And some person came and sat next to me, sure enough. And I looked to my left, and it was like a 75-year-old woman. And so I just laughed, and I was just like, okay, God, I guess I'm never going to get married. You don't have a girl for me, you know, that kind of thing. I was joking, obviously. But then at the end of the service, this lady turned to me, and she kind of got my attention, and she said, hey, I felt like God has something for you. And she said that God wants me to tell you that he sees you, that he's with you. He's so proud of you, and that he's with you. And basically that, you know, he's been with me through this hardship. And so then I went in my car and I started crying, and I was just praying. And it was then when God basically said, Terrence, you know, you've been running to Berean now, and now I need you to go back to Life Point. I need you to go choose community. And so that's what I did. I, you know, obeyed the Lord, and I went back, and that's when I started to go into the first point that I mentioned, which was I chose community. I chose to then take time out of my week and my days to go and pour into community and receive from them and invest myself in there and build the good group of guys that I had around me going into my next year of college, my sophomore year.
When she was done giving you that message, did you ask her if she was single?
Definitely not.
I was praying like, as soon as Lord, in the name of Jesus,
baby,
if Terrence sees her, he'll know.
Hey, maybe
the Bible says the Lord is not a man that he should lie. He didn't say hot girl. He just said, hey, there's a girl who's going to meet you there, right? Yeah. That's funny.
I mean, to this day, she could have been single.
Yeah, praise God.
You took the last thing I was going to say, and then we'll kind of get out of here. Okay. I was just my last point I jotted down before the show was hard over time gets less hard. And so You know,
Always.
it's like, man, it's hard, and then it's a little bit less harder, and then a little bit less hard, and to the point where then now it becomes super easy. And you know, I'm trying to teach my students that too, because every lesson, for the 8th graders, they have to present at the end of the lesson their opinions upon whatever that lesson is. And so the first time, and they barely did it, people were heads down. Second time, a little bit more loose. Third time, a little bit more. And so I just announced it today that we have to do our presentation next week. And the groans and the oh mans were less this time than the very first time. So I'm telling them, like, hey, it's going to get easier, you know. And that's with anything. That's anything we do, especially just applying to this, you know, choosing to follow Jesus. It'll come with its struggles and its trials and its hardships. But I think the immediate in my life to turn and to stop drinking and stop partying, that was the hardest time of my life. And it's only been easier from there. I still have my hard times and days, but nothing was like that 20, 21, 22-year-old times when I was trying to say no to everything. That was some of the hardest years of my life.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, final thoughts?
Terrence, what's your final thought?
My final thought is the urgency to separate yourself from secular university. I'm not meaning don't go to secular university, go there. But the importance is to separate yourself from that community, especially if you struggle or have struggled in the past with it. You can't be near it. You have to go with Christian community and be nowhere near partying, anything, you know, sex, drugs, whatever it is that is in the secular portion of the university. You cannot be a part of that. I have one closing stat, and it's that 4 out of 5 college students consume alcohol on a regular daily basis. Or a weekly basis, sorry. And that 50% of them admit to binge drinking regularly. And 1 out of 5, if they went to a doctor, would be diagnosed with alcohol usage disorder, basically meaning they're alcoholics.
Yeah, basically it means they use it on purpose to get the buzz so they don't have to feel.
Yeah. And so it's just this idea that there is an epidemic in America with alcohol in college students, just as there is with obesity in America as a whole. There is an epidemic in alcoholism in the universities in America. And we have to separate ourselves from that scene when we go to university.
Awesome. That's great. I would say this. Okay, so choose your heart. Number 1, you get a choice. Never forget you get a choice. And because you get a choice, go back to one of our other podcasts where I always say begin with the end. So like if I'm going to go out and party, like where's this going to end? Okay. If I'm going to get up and work out, where's this going to end? Okay. If I'm going to start, you know, reading my Bible, where's it going to end? I want you to focus on the end. So choose your hard and then begin with the end. That's why I want you to focus on this.
Love it. Hey, never forget it. Renew, move, and find. And on this podcast, we teach you that there's 2 times to be great: when you feel like it and when you don't. Peace out. Love y'all. See you later.
You already know. Peace.
I had to realize what's inside of me. For all of the people that lied to me. For all of the people that said I would fall off. Oh, boy, what a time to be alive. I wrote this for everyone, feel like they counted out. You need to look in the mirror and tell yourself it's time to be who I am now. Greatness.